Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and I think you can guess that it is an IP camera review again, and this was received from Annke free of charge for this review video, and this is the C500 series camera. I'm saying series because actually it's not a C500 is not a single camera, because the same camera is available in 3 different designs. So you have this more traditional looking, I think this is called a bullet camera, I'm not sure. But then there is also the dome camera design. So they have the same internals and they work the same way, but they just have a different physical appearance. And just to cover the main specs of this device fairly quickly, so it has a 5 megapixel camera which provides a video recording and video stream which is higher than Full HD. I'm going to look at the resolutions once we go into the settings and the online options. It has, of course, night vision, so there is 100 feet night vision. And there are also a lot of technologies which make the picture quality really good. There is digital WRD and 3D and DNR, and all these buzzwords just basically make sure that the image quality is going to be really good, the image is going to be really crisp, there is going to be as low noise as possible. I will try to include some sample footage as you watch this review, and actually I'm having a bit of an issue now because I'm running out of available network slots around the house, and this is a network camera, so it doesn't support Wi-Fi. You have to use the Ethernet, and I actually just only have one socket left in my office, so I think I'm going to use the really long extension lead. I think this is a 25-meter network lead that I was provided, just to basically place it outside the window so I can get you some outside footage and actually some night footage as well. The weather in Hungary nowadays is pretty crap, but in the next few days we are going to have some really nice sunshine, so at least I'm going to have some decent pictures as opposed to some gray, dull winter pictures. So I wanted to review some sample footage. This is the first one that I did in my office, and I just wanted to leave in because you can really see how clear the details are and everything, especially if you look at the door, and so it's really crisp. And then finally I moved the camera outside. It's just outside my window. It's not in the ideal location, but at least you can see. I mean, it was pretty late afternoon. You can see movement in the distance. I think the gate is probably about like 20-25 meters away, so you have an idea, and everything is nice and sharp. Well, maybe the sky is a little bit overexposed, but still you can see colors and everything. So the sun was definitely going down, and here it's almost 5 p.m. and this is like in the middle of or beginning of January, so it was actually really dark. It was much darker than what you see on the screen, but the camera still managed to take a fairly good shot. I mean, you can see some noise here in the floor, but you still see some colors, and everything is still visible, and then everything appears to be sharp. So I think this is a superbly good image compared to how it looked like. I mean, if I would have gone outside at that time, I would have put the lights on because it was just too dark. You can see as the car passes by that it's it has a low shutter speed because you can see the motion blur. So there was definitely a really low amount of light available. So let's see the next one. That was just a small one. So now this is like proper evening time. Well, of course the things in the foreground are very bright, but still sort of like the gate and this area here is still visible. As I said, that's probably 20-25 meters. This one is getting lights from the street light, which is sort of that direction. But yeah, it looks very decent for night footage. The next day, it was really bright day, so I wanted to take a few smaller shots. As you can see, the sun is going by. I wanted to see if there are any areas of the picture which is overexposed, but to be honest, this is looking fine. And then maybe 1 hour later, the sun is up a little bit more. We can see also some movement in the background. And what else? This is almost like shortly after lunchtime, very bright, but still the sky is overexposed, but the rest of the image is not really. So I think it's a good image. And that's sort of like later, as my wife was coming home, bringing the kids home. So even the motion looks, fairly smooth. I think the spec says 15 frames per second, but it is definitely good for a security camera footage. And also keep in mind that this has been, the resolution has been reduced, and of course it has been re-encoded, so you are definitely not watching the original footage or the original quality. And here we are back with the first clip. So that was the review of the live footage. The other big thing with the Annke camera is that it has a tamper-proof design. So, well, not so much about the disc unit, but I've seen videos where the dome unit can be hit with a hammer and the glass will not shatter. Well, this is definitely not something that I would try. But what I can see on this camera is that the whole shell is made of metal, and this end bracket piece that you screw onto the wall, that's made of plastic. And in case you didn't know, Annke is the consumer brand of Hikvision. And Hikvision, I think it's probably one of the leading security camera manufacturer. And probably if you walk around in, cities where there is CCTV monitoring or in commercial premises, most probably you're going to see Hikvision. So we should expect a similar quality that Hikvision delivers with the commercial cameras, and probably that's the reason for their confidence that they supply these cameras in this gray box as opposed to something nice, shiny and colorful. But yeah, to be honest, I don't care about that. I think the camera speaks for itself. And just to continue on with the details, so this is not a Wi-Fi camera, this is a network camera. You can see the network connection here and the power connection here, but the power connection is really optional because this supports PoE, so power over Ethernet, which again is something that I don't have, so I'm just going to be relying on the external 12-volt power supply. And by the way, this unit is actually model I51DE. So when you look at documentation or the help, instead of seeing C500, you are going to see this I51. So that's how you know whether a particular article applies to this camera. And since I mentioned about the box, let me cover the unboxing really quick. So you are receiving the camera in this box, and actually it contains just a few products. So it contains the camera itself, so everything is well packaged. And besides the camera, you are getting a drilling template, so you know what holes to drill in the wall. You are also getting some screws and so various mounting hardware. And you are also getting this waterproof, well, maybe not waterproof, but water resistant jacket for the network cable. So if you need to run the cables outside, you can loop the network cable through this and then secure it on the other end, so it becomes somewhat water resistant. I'm not sure if this has a particular IP rating. And also there is this silicone cap which goes onto the power socket or the 12-volt socket if you are not using that. And this is all that is contained in the kit. Because this is a PoE camera and the Annke recorders also support PoE, I think in a regular setup you wouldn't need the external power supply. But if you need in your setup, just make sure that you order that separately. So that's that's not contained in the box. And also the 5 meter, what is it? Sorry, 25 meter extension lead was separate. But again, if you are buying this in a bundle with some network recorders, that would contain the the network cable anyway. But if you need some extra, you can just order this separately. And this also has this cap, which then, once you plug it in, something like that, and then it screws on and it's going to protect the network connection. And that probably just crimps on some silicone here, so that is going to make it watertight, like this. There are a few different ways how you can interact with this camera. First of all, the easiest one, probably which I find the most convenient, is that just use the website which is generated by the camera. So I just plugged it in. Actually, I've given it a fixed IP address, and I can just go to that IP address and do the live viewing and also all the configuration from here. The next one is there is a Windows application that you can administer, manage and view the cameras as well. To be honest, I haven't installed that. I think that would make more sense if I would have multiple cameras, because then I can do multiple cameras in the single application. But for this one, I'm just using the website for the time being. And if you want to use any third-party application, this camera also supports Onvif. So as I said, you just need to give it power and Ethernet connection, and it would by default automatically receive an IP address from your router. So you just come to that page or the IP address it was assigned to, and you do the initial setup, which is basically providing an admin password. And once you have done that, you can just log in with admin and the password that you have provided. You also need to download this plugin in order to view the live feed, and of course enable the plugin, but that's pretty much it, and it is working. You can see that's my hand. So I've just set up here in the office. It's looking out to the corridor, and that's the bathroom and some windows and everything. And probably you can already see that it has a really good picture quality. I mean, it's a nice sunny day, so there is, I think, sufficient amount of light even inside the house, but still it's a really nice and a crisp screen. There is the usual sort of like half-second delay in the camera and my actual movement, but that's what I see with any cameras. So let me just quickly cover the main features here. And I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time because it's more important that you configure the camera and then you set up recording, which I'm not going to do because I don't have the MVR with this yet. So you see the main live feed here. You can set up the different aspect ratios. You can switch between the mainstream and the substream as well. And whether it's the MPEG format or this web components format, but I think I just left it on the default, and it comes through fine, and the picture quality is really good. You can see that we have the date and time on the top and the name of the camera, and this is in this format that it automatically changes between black and white depending on the background color, so it's always readable. It just makes this weird effect, but yeah, that happens. And to be honest, most of the things that you find here on the right is not going to be used because, well, this doesn't have PTZ motion, so you can't zoom, pan around or set presets. So these are pretty much invalid for this camera. You always get this message that it's not supported. If you buy the Dome version, then yeah, obviously that would do that. And there are a couple of things here. You can stop the live view, you can take a snapshot or a live recording, and this is something that would always get recorded on your local computer. So you can take a snapshot, and that snapshot will be on the the full resolution. So we can see how I can get the info here in this new application here. So that's, you can see the 5 megapixel resolution. And that would be the resolution for the video as well. Let me just create a small recording. So you start the recording, you stop the recording, and then it creates a file. And if I look at that file, actually this is something that I created earlier, then you can see in the codec information that this stream is also 5 megapixels. And by the way, which I haven't mentioned in the beginning, that the camera supports H.265, which is I think that probably there is an H.265 plus, but definitely this is a more advanced codec than the previously well-known H.264. So it offers better compression, especially for IP cameras. That's really important because normally, most of the picture content doesn't change. So that would help to reduce the video size in your network storage. So your network storage would be able to contain more footage. So that's all about the image content in the highest resolution. And in the general settings, you also have some, picture controls, brightness, saturation, contrast, exposure. But to be honest, I left everything. You see, you have some the image editing options. So these are the advanced features, which is going to make your image better quality. But to be honest, I think it was more natural if I set this off, because yeah, my door is really dark, so it actually appears like that in real life as well. And that's the other settings for colors and stuff. Probably it will make sense if I do some outdoor footage, but these are how it is left on the standard settings. As you can see, that the camera automatically adjusts white balance and everything. So it was a little bit yellowish, but now it's back to natural colors. I have white walls. Now let's go to the configuration so you can understand what this device can really do for you. So first of all, in the live view parameters, you have some options, which protocols to use for the live view, what are the different, recording size, so where it records the still images and the recordings, the things that I have just done, and if there should be any cap, or how much it records. So these are all the local recordings. To be honest, I think probably this is something that anyone would use the least, because you will connect it to a network recorder, and that's going to record all the footage there. In the system settings, you have some options. You can rename the device, device number, some of the IDs, the time settings, how it will know what is the correct time zone. And also, daylight. Oh, I haven't enabled daylight saving time, but you can do that here. In management, you can do the usual firmware update, device reboot, and you can also do some audit logs. So I can, do a search here, and you can see that, the system was started, there was HTTP request, somebody logged in, logged out to the admin page. Next option is the security. So as you can see, so you can set up some security both for RTSP and also for the web authentication. I just left it on everything on default settings. You can also enable IP address filters if you want to block certain access, or you just want to enable access from certain devices. And user management, you can set up different users. So by default, when you set up the device, the admin user is created, but you can add additional users. So if you want to grant access somebody to look at this online web page, but you don't want them to make any modification, you can just create like another user with a view level, and that wouldn't be able to access these settings. Now let's go over to the network settings. So as I said, I've changed I've disabled the DHCP, so it is always connected to my router on this fixed IP address. My router has DDNS enabled, so I don't need DDNS on this device, but this can do dynamic DNS as well. On the port, again, you have the default setup for the HTTP, the RTSP, or the HTTPS and the server port. You can change these if you want to. And finally, if you want NAT to be enabled or UPnP, you can do it here. So I don't want this camera to be visible from the outside, so I haven't done anything yet. In the advanced settings, I've configured just a few functions. I wanted to test how this device can upload images to an FTP server. So I don't have connected to an MVR yet. This doesn't contain an SD card, so the only way to store images is to upload them to an FTP server or email them. So I've set up the FTP access. That's my FTP server. And in my FTP server, I created a new share, which is called the camera. So here I have specified that it needs to save in the child directory. The parent directory is the camera. So this is the first folder that it needs to log into when it connects to the FTP server. And under it, it should create child directories using the camera name. So if I would have multiple cameras, then the pictures are saved in separate folders. And that is working, and I can also show you here. So you can see that on the camera I have C500, and I have the images here. It requires a few additional settings, so we will show you once we get there. And you can see the images here. For some reason, these images are 320 by 240, and I wasn't able to set a high resolution to that. You can also set up emails. So if motion is detected, then email notification will be sent with pictures as attachment. The platform access is required, so you can access the camera using the Annke Vision mobile app. You just enable it, and in the setup process, it's going to ask for your verification code. So you type the verification code here, and then you will be able to add the camera to the Annke Vision app. To be honest, the whole process is very straightforward, so I haven't recorded how I did that. If you want to enable HTTPS, you can do it here. Quality of service settings. Here in the integration protocol, you can enable Onvif, and then you can set an Onvif user ID and a password. So you can access this camera from an Onvif compatible device. For example, a third-party recorder would be able to store the recordings and get the alarms and all the other configuration from this camera. And actually I wanted this camera to connect to my Node-RED instance using Onvif, but for some reason it's not working. So I'm still working on that. And if I get it working, I will be covering it in a future video. But actually, if I open the Onvif manager and if I open my camera, I can see everything here. So the the Onvif is definitely working. And if I look at events, you can, for example, see that I have set up a motion detection event, and that is getting sent through Onvif as well. So everything is working. For some reason, Node is not connecting, but I will figure that out and then see how we can make it work. Let's go through some of the other settings. So video settings, and that's where you can see all the different resolutions. So that's, full HD, and we can go all the way up to this resolution, which is the 5 megapixels. I don't know whether it's called 2K or something else. And you can configure it separately for the mainstream and the substream. And by the way, the frame rate is maximum 15 frames per second. And you can also make some configuration here as well, some fixed regions. But that's all about the video configuration. In the image configuration, again, the usual things, image settings. I just left everything on auto, but you can even, make these settings time dependent. You have exposure settings, so you can set your exposure, day and night switch. And these are the image enhancement options. We have seen how I played around with that previously. White balance, it looks just fine left on a white balance. Noise reduction, this was the default setting, so I just left on normal noise reduction and the value of 50. And you can also mirror the image. So if the camera is mounted upside down, you can just flip the image here, and you can also change whether it's PAL or NTSC. Oh, by the way, I didn't show you, but the mount has like 2 different screws, and it can be turned and twisted in pretty much all directions. So I think in most cases you would be able to orient the camera in the correct way, so you don't need to flip the image, but certainly you can do that. And then finally we got to the event section. That's where you can set up motion detection. So I've done a simple test. I enabled motion detection, and I've enabled this option as well. And I have selected this small area on the lower right side of the screen. So that's where the camera is going to detect motion. So you can just use the draw area to, select different grids, or you can just clear them and, start drawing it again, maybe like this. And you can also set sensitivity. At the moment it's set to, it's set to 40. So there are, different sensitivities based on how much motion or how much change on the image is going to detect or trigger the motion detection. You can also set up alarming schedules. So if you only want the motion detection to run in certain times of the day or certain days, you can do it here. And in the linkage method, I've enabled 2 options. One is to give me a notification in the app, and also apply the images to the memory card. And obviously for the FTP upload, you have to provide the FTP details that I've just shown you a couple of minutes ago. But there is also option for, enable video tampering. And these have the same linkage method, so that can send an email and also send a notification to your app, or you also have some, exceptions on illegal login. And finally, just to make sure that your recordings and save files are working, come to the schedule settings here and just make sure that, it is enabled for all periods. For example, I didn't do this in the beginning, and I wasn't getting the images uploaded to the FTP server. And then besides schedule, you can specify the capture parameters here, and that's where I enabled the event triggered snapshot. And the settings here actually are fairly limited. I'm not sure why is the limitation for this. So the format is only JPEG, which is fine. I mean, I would have selected JPEG anyway, but the resolution is only 320 by 280. So, where is all the, the 5 megapixel or 2K resolution? I don't quite understand this one. Maybe this will get, fixed by a firmware update. And of course you have some quality and the intervals and the number of images. So if motion is detected, it's going to take 4 snapshots 1 second apart. And this is what you have seen here. So these are all the different motion detections. You can see that they have the same time because, the only difference is the second. And actually you can see the timestamp here in the image names. So they are, fairly small images because of the low resolution. But to be honest, nowadays, I mean, if you have a standalone system, yeah, you would upload the images to FTP, but normally you would just have an MVR, and then your full resolution videos are going to be saved on the network recorder anyway. And these are all the settings that you can set on the web administration. And as I said, there is a Windows application as well where you can do exactly the same one, but for me it's easier because you don't have to install anything. It just, you just need a Google Chrome or whatever internet browser that you are using. And if you're planning to use a third-party recorder, which let's say doesn't even support Onvif, that's still not a problem because this unit has RTSP streams as well. And you can see that the RTSP streams are like RTSP : / and then the user ID : password at the IP of the camera. Actually, this was the old IP, so I need to change that. And then the port, which is 554. And again, we have seen in the administration how you can change the port to something else. And then /, the next one is the codec. So you can have H.265, H.264, or maybe MPEG-4 as well if you want the stream to be in MPEG-4. / the channel number. So this camera obviously has one channel, so that's going to be CH1. Next parameter is after / is either main or sub, whether you want to see the mainstream or the substream, and then /AV_stream. So if I test this, we should be able to see the live stream. Yes, I closed the door in the meantime, but you can see me here. And if I look at the codec information, so this is how it comes through. So that's the full resolution, and of course there is no audio. And as I mentioned before, the other way to access this camera is the mobile app, which is called the Annke Vision or Annke Vision. And once you load it and once you add your device, I mean, it was really easy to add the device. You have this plus button here and you can scan the QR code. And well, my camera actually didn't have a QR code, but it just had a barcode at the bottom, and the camera was able to read the barcode without any issues. So it got added. It asked for that password that I set on the administration page, and my video was added. So you can see that it is here. And by default, it is showing the basic stream, so you can change the standard or HD. You can, if you have multiple cameras in the Annke Vision app, you can just have different tiled views. And if I carry on with some of these icons here on the bottom of the screen, you have this magnifying glass, so you can zoom into a part of the image. And for that, you probably better if you change to the HD stream, because then you can actually see something. And so I'm 8 times zoomed into the switch and some of the other details, and you can see it's still pretty sharp. Everything looks very nice. Okay, let's go out. That's fine. So I can take a snapshot here or a recording, so that would record here onto my phone. And if I scroll this further down, I have a play and stop, so I can stop the stream. I have this thing here which it doesn't really do anything, and there is no tooltip, so I can't figure out what this does, but that could be something which is only applicable for the dome camera. And I can also I can also flip the image here from the screen, and I also can change the noise reduction here from the app. But these are the functions that I have here. And when I go to the 3 dots, I can share this device, look at the recordings that I have done, or I can go into the device settings. So here you can also rename the device, set the time. The one thing I had to do here is I had to enable the notification. So by default it's disabled. So you set it to enabled, you see set to receive events and push notification, and you can even set up a schedule here. So if you don't want this notification to be received in certain parts of the day, you can do it here. And by default, the image and the video encryption is turned on. So the communication between the app and the device is encrypted. And you can change the verification code here as well. And a few other configurations you can do here. But I think mainly most of the things I just usually configure on the website as well. And then once everything is configured, I just add it to the Annke Vision app, and I can just view the footage, and most of the configuration is already done. And just one more thing about the app notifications. You on the main screen, just click here on more and then go to settings, and here just make sure that your message push notification is enabled. Because so these are the two things that you need, well, a couple of things you need in order to receive the push notifications. First, enable it on the app itself, which is here, enable it on the camera within the app, and also enable the whole thing within the camera administration, so the areas. And then in the linking method, we have seen how you need to enable the push notification. But that's pretty much it. And once you receive those notifications, it's going to appear here like this one. And it also shows you the snapshot. So that's nice. So I think that would be my review of the Annke C500 camera. If you like this product, you are going to find links in the video description below. But that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.